Welcome to Modern Tactical Shooting. For this video, I'll be doing a review of Southern Tactical's Battlefield Pickup, basically their version of a Galil SAR. I'm also going to be going over why I think now is the perfect time to get into Galils, whether you purchase one from Southern Tactical, another company, you get a build kit, or you go the custom route and get one built. I think now is the time, and I'll cover that a little bit later in the video. But right now, let's get into a review of Southern Tactical's Battlefield Pickup. So first off, I did purchase this rifle with my own money. I got it from Atlantic Firearms for $12.99. I'm not affiliated with Atlantic Firearms in any way, but I've purchased a few rifles from them in the last, I would say, 2 or 3 years. I've always had a great experience. The rifles have always shown up to my FFL in under 2 weeks. And also to please the YouTube overlords, yes, Galils come with a 35 round magazine, or the Southern Tactical one will, but this has been plugged. Basically, there's a dowel in here, so this magazine will only accept 30 rounds. So in the shooting clips, you'll see I can only shoot 30 rounds and then it'll go empty, and that's to please the YouTube rules. You can't rock anything over 30. Now, going over the specs of this rifle, it's basically all Israeli parts except for the receiver, which is a toe tort, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. There's a US-made AK trigger that's been modified to fit in the gun. And this is a US-made 13-inch nitrided barrel. It has this flash hider, which is pinned and welded to the front, which I think it looks super cool. The intent is that if you want to buy one of these and SBR it, yes, you can undo the pin and weld, put a flash hider on here, and you'll have a true Galil SAR. But I think this looks pretty cool. And what makes this the Battlefield Pickup is none of the original Israeli parts have been recoded in any way. They come scuffed up, chips in the paint, dings in it, and that's the Battlefield Pickup look, or the battle-worn look. And actually, I think that looks pretty cool. Reminds me of my old work gun back in SF. Granted, it's nowhere close to an M4 or Mark 18, but we beat our work guns to death, and they're all scuffed and banged up. And this is very reminiscent of that, so I think it looks pretty cool. Now, out of the box, I took it to the range, put 3 mags through it, and I noticed 2 quality control issues with my gun. And that's kind of a theme when you buy a Galil that's been built by a manufacturer. It seems to be a running theme, going back to Century Galanis, ATI Galeos, JRA Gallants. They got mixed reviews, and apparently Southern Tactical is not free of QC issues only. The first issue, this does come with the flip-up night sights. The tritium's long dead. That's not the issue. Mine was missing the little leaf spring that basically holds the flip-up front night sight from flopping around. Not that big of an issue. I put a R4, South African R4 front sight on here anyways, so I didn't need that. I'll talk why I did this here in a little bit. But 3 magazines into it, my hammer and trigger pin were coming loose because this was missing the wire that holds those pins in. So that could have been pretty detrimental if those just backed all the way out. Now, I contacted Southern Tactical. They were very receptive to my issue, and they were like, hey, we'll just send you out a wire, no problem. I actually couldn't really wait, and I ordered one also from Apex Gun Parts. That came in first, a shepherd's hook, threw it in here, and got this bad boy back into operation. But there are some common complaints or quality control issues with this gun, which I'll get into. Now, there are actually not a lot of reviews of this rifle on YouTube. That's one reason why I wanted to make a review of this rifle. But two common complaints I've seen on AR15.com is one, this rifle is overgassed, and two, it has a lot of trigger slap or vibration after the gun fires in the trigger, making it a little painful to shoot. Well, mine has both. It did have trigger slap. It wasn't as bad as some others have reported, and mine was pretty well overgassed. Now, let's talk about that trigger. Basically, again, it's an AK trigger that they modified to fit in the receiver, and honestly, I think they just could have done a better job modifying that trigger. I replaced it with an ALG AK trigger that I did have to modify, and yes, I rounded the hammer so it will save on the bolt carrier. But after I put in the ALG trigger, not only is it lighter, it got rid of all that trigger slap. And concerning it being overgassed, well, AKs in general are overgassed regardless of the caliber. I own an SLR 107 by Arsenal, and that's considered a pretty high quality AK. I put a K&S piston in that rifle, and I was able to dial it down 21 clicks. So K&S makes an adjustable piston for this rifle right here. This is the part number. And I was able, after installing it, able to dial it down 24 clicks. That's pretty significant. So yes, mine was overgassed. I consider putting in a K&S adjustable piston really as a permanent fix. I own a few AKs, and they all have K&S pistons if they can take it. So 24 clicks. I did turn it down a little bit more, but I ended up having an ammo issue. I'll talk about that here in a second. So yeah, those I would say are the two main complaints. Another complaint people have is with the engraving on the rifle. It's not that clear, but honestly, I don't care. I didn't buy this to be a clone. I bought this to go out and shoot and have fun with. So with the engraving, you know, kind of fuzzy, it's not that big deal to me. Now, I'm no stranger to the Galil. I own an ATI Galil, and the reason why I really wanted to get one of these Southern Tacticals is for two reasons. With the ATI Galil, and here's mine right here, I have an early version, and I think they changed it after a while, but mine only takes US-made TAPCO magazines. It was purpose-built to only take those mags. You have to modify Galil mags or modify your receiver to take true Galil mags, and that's kind of a pain, a little bit disappointing. But also, mine, this does run great, and it's gassed pretty nice. But this does not run steel case ammo at all. It only runs brass case ammo, and that's kind of disappointing to not be able to buy, you know, cheap steel case, or it was cheap prior to all the different conflicts going on, but this won't run steel case. The Southern Tactical, however, of course, it takes true Galil mags, and so far this has run everything I put into it. I've been shooting a lot of Wolf steel case and a lot of your American-made brass. Now, concerning these Galil mags, and I've talked about it before and speaking about a Galil, say if you want 10 working magazines, I suggest you go out and buy at least a dozen, because these mags are 30 to 40 years old and some are not going to work. I purchased a bunch of used mags from Atlantic Firearms, and I think out of the dozen I had on hand, 2 didn't work. They're steel mags. If they get dented, they're not going to run. Tried all my mags. I have 2 that don't work, so I've got a solid 10 that do. Again, this one's plugged just for the video. This optic on here was on my ATI Galil. I threw it on here. This is a Elbit Falcon Mark I. I've talked about this a few times on my channel. This is a late 70s, 80s IDF issue optic. It was purpose built for the Galil. It actually sits around the gas tube, and it has a mount that mounts between the gas tube and the barrel. Well, they came out with it for the Galil, but due to the weight, this is already a heavy gun being steel and metal. This Elbit Falcon is over a pound. It was never issued for the Galil. They actually sat on these for quite some time. They put a different mount on them, and they ended up using them on M4s and M16s in the early 90s in the IDF. But the optic's kind of rare, and I mentioned this before. The Galil mount is super rare. In fact, I think I'm the only one in the United States with a full Galil mount and a Mark I, the whole combination together. Now, I mentioned the flip-up front night sight missing the spring didn't bother me. That's because I ended up replacing the entire front sight. This is a South African R4 front sight. I actually took it off my ATI Galil. I swapped it, and it doesn't have the relief in it for a flip-up front night sight. And the tritium in these flip-up sights is dead anyways, so therefore looks. And the reason why I did that is the hood of the front sight on the Galil sight perfectly bisects this red dot, and the red dot appears literally right on the hood. Well, this R4 has a larger diameter. It doesn't block the red dot, so the red dot appears in the center of the R4 front sight. So I did this a few years back on my ATI Galil, and of course, now it's on this bad boy right here. So how does this shoot? How does this perform? Well, now that I have the gas adjusted, it shoots pretty smooth. Reliability-wise, and I only have 650 rounds to this rifle, so it's not a true test of reliability yet, but I've only had one malfunction, and actually it was created by me in the KNS adjustable gas piston. I had this dialed down to 24 clicks, and I wanted to see how smooth I could actually get it. I dropped it down to 26 clicks, and that's when I had a malfunction using Wolf ammo. Wolf ammo is not as high powered as our brass 5.56 ammo, and it basically short stroked. It started to chamber around. You could tell by the jam, the bolt carrier basically ran out of energy, and the round got stuck on the feed ramp. So it was basically due to being undergassed. I turned it back 2 more clicks, back to 24 clicks, and this runs like a dream again. So if I was just running brass ammo all the time, I could take this down to 26 clicks and it'd run just fine. But because I'm shooting steel case once in a while, I've got it set to 24 clicks. And outside of that one failure to feed, in the 650 rounds I put through this bad boy so far, it's run great. No issues whatsoever. Now, I'll admit 650 rounds is not a true test of reliability yet. Once I get 1,000 or 2,000 rounds on this gun, I will do an update video to see where it stands. But so far, I'm pretty pleased. This really runs like a top once you get the gas adjusted on here. So I think if you're interested in a Southern tactical rifle, you just have to make a mental note. To really get it smooth, you're gonna have to invest in a KNS piston, which they're just over about $100. Now, in terms of accuracy, not the greatest. I was shooting 5 round groups supported, and the best I could get was just over 3.5-inch groups at 100 yards. So that's basically just over 3.5 MOA, not the greatest. Honestly, if this was an AR, I would be pretty disappointed. But let's face it, these Galils, they're kind of novelty guns. They're fun to shoot. I would not rock this if I was on a tactical team. Now, this has been reliable enough that, yeah, I would use this for home defense. In fact, this is my new truck gun just because it folds up and it's nice and small. But at 3.5 MOA, or actually it was a little bit larger, around 3.7, that's not the best. But for what I intend to use this rifle for, it's okay. I'm gonna run and gun this, mainly shoot probably under 50 yards 90% of the time, just having fun running and gunning blazing targets. And fun fact, while 3.7 MOA sounds pretty dismal, US Army standard for an M4, which changed back in 2010 from around 3.5 at 100 yards to a 5-inch group at 100 yards, being deemed a serviceable barrel. So that's basically 5 MOA, and that's super dismal. Imagine going into combat with a rifle that can only shoot 5 MOA no matter what ammo you put into it. The Army made that decision basically to save money on new barrels during GWAT because, of course, soldiers are going through a lot of barrels and those heavy firefights and back-to-back deployments, back-to-back training. So going through a lot of barrels, they decided to expand it from about 3.5 minute angle. That's not how the Army measures accuracy, but it's published now at anything under a 5-inch group at 100 yards. So this currently does outperform US Army mil-spec standards for accuracy. So why do I say now is the time to buy a Galil? Well, I think it is because really parts are drying up. At least Israeli-made Galil parts are drying up. Through the years, you've had various companies offer Galils. You had your Century Galanis quite a ways back, and those were probably more miss than hit. And then in the last 5 years, you've had JRA Galant, of course, ATI Galil. There's another company called Icon, but I think they're using a lot of South American parts. But all these companies offering all these rifles, they were buying up all the Israeli Galil parts. Now, 3 years ago when I got my ATI Galil, if you go to Apex Gun Parts, they had tons of Galil parts. You could buy the entire kits. Well, most of their inventory is now out. And I think that's because all these gun companies were buying up all the parts, and the Galil parts surplus in Israel. It does not last forever, and I think they're starting to dry up. So whether you go with a Southern tactical rifle or you get a parts kit, you go the custom route with Hillbilly Firearms or M13 Industries, I believe it is. They make a custom Galil. I think now is the time to go ahead and pull the trigger on one, because I think what you're going to see in the next 2 or 3 years is basically the Israeli parts are going to be completely dried up and hard to get. So you won't have the ability to really make or buy a Galil anymore. And of course, really there's 3 ways to get a Galil. You can go the commercial route and buy a gun that's already been built. And whichever brand you go with, whether you find an Old Century, you go with ATI, Jerry, Gallant, both of those rifles have mixed reviews. I think they're better than the Old Centuries. You check out Icon. I don't have any experience with those rifles. Or Southern Tactical, yes, you might have some minor quality control issues. Another complaint people have talked about with the Southern Tactical is a loose top cover. Everything on my rifle is super tight. Now on my ATI Galil, it did come with a loose top cover, but really if you want a tight top cover, how these are fitted is they bang on these with hammers and they get a tight seal around the gun. So if you're bold enough, you can tighten up your top cover. I actually did it on my ATI Galil. It came with a loose top cover. I took off the cover, I got a hammer, I banged these corners until it fits snug on the receiver. So if you send one of these in for a loose top cover, that's probably how they're gonna fit it anyways. Yes, this gun had 2 minor quality control issues. It really didn't bother me. I like working on guns. That's how I learn about guns. So me replacing the wire that was missing in here to hold the trigger and hammer pin in wasn't that big of a deal to me, because this gun so far, outside that one jam, which was really induced by me turning down the gun or the gas too low, this gun has so far run flawlessly. So what do I think is Southern Tactical, their battlefield pickup? Is it worth it, or their other Galils? I would say yes. If you're looking to get one already built and not go the custom route, which you're gonna save money doing so. This was $12.99, and I think the one that has fresh phosphate coating looks new. I think that's only like $100 more. Now, yes, I did put in an ALG trigger in here and a K&S piston, which really this rifle needs that. And you can say, well, that's an extra $200. So really this is a $1,500 rifle once I got done with it. And to me, I mean, that's still $500 cheaper if you go the custom route and you get somebody like Hillbilly Firearms to put you a parts kit together. Granted, you're probably going to get awesome quality control, and it's probably going to be the best Galil that you can get in the States. But again, I'm pretty happy with this rifle right now as it is. And I did save $500. So yeah, a little bit of QC issues on the gun, but now that I got the gas dialed down and I replaced the trigger, this thing has been running like a dream. So my final verdict on this rifle, yes, some people have reported some QC issues with the rifle. I had my own, but Southern Tactical, they appear to be very cooperative, that they want to put out a good product. And again, as soon as I got the gas adjusted and I replaced the trigger, this runs great. So I don't really have any issues with it. Only 650 rounds so far, so not a true test of reliability. I will do a follow-up video once I break at least 1,000 rounds on this gun. I'll probably do a review or an updated review once I hit at least 2,000 rounds on this rifle. So there it is, my initial review of Southern Tactical's battlefield pickup, their version of a Galil. So far, I'm digging it, but like always, hopefully you found this video informative and entertaining. And as always, I'm Jeff Gerwich. Thanks for watching.